If you've watched my last video, you'll know I'm working on a deaf alerter system for the mancave. I have an ESP8266 which can connect to a private Wi-Fi network and a URL to trigger the alert. I just need to build a switch. My requirements are that the switch unit needs to be an acceptable addition to my wife's newly fitted kitchen, and it needs to be safely and easily operated by my kids. I sketched up a few designs, but the simplest I could start with just the parts I already had in. I'm going to make a simple sculpture out of a brass wire. I've chosen a poppy, and then I'm going to use the brass wire as a capacitive sensor for the ESP8266. The idea being, you gently touch the poppy in the kitchen and you trigger an alert in the workshop. I traced the outline of a poppy and figured out a path that was a single line. I put pins into the woods to guide some of the sharp curves. I then used thread to measure the length of the line and cut out brass to about 150% of that length. I'm making the rough shape first, bending the wire around the guide pins. Once I have all the right overlaps on the correct sides of the pins, my plan is to bind the wires together where they cross using tiny brass loops. Snagging the right wires and then tightening the tiny loops was pretty fiddly. And then the final stage, which was to work around the loop, adding in the small bends and shaping the line. Having made the poppy, I'm prototyping the capacitive sensor using an Arduino Nano. Paul Staffragan is custodian of the capacitive sensing library, and in my experience anything he is involved in is just a joy to work with. Here you can see that you touch the poppy wire, change its capacitance, and the Arduino knows. Unlike the torch, where I was working within an existing part, I'm going to let the circuit inform the size of the base of the sculpture, so I'll have a little more room to play with, but I don't want to make it too big. It's quite a similar circuit to the one I used in the torch. It has the ESP8266 wireless board. It's powered at 3 volts using the LM1117 linear regulator and a pair of 10 microfarad capacitors for smoothing. For the sensing, I'm only using a 300 kilo ohm resistor, as the internal pull-ups of the ESP's GPIOs add more resistance. I thought I was going to have difficulties with the sensing library on the little ESP8266. But here you can see it's sensing the capacitance of a wire and blinking an LED, even though the sensor and the LED are having to share a pin. I trimmed the circuit to size, and that gave me minimum dimensions for the base. When I'm hogging out a lot of material with a large Forstner bit, I like to mark the centres and sides of all of the overlapping holes before I go too deep into any one of them. I find this helps reduce chatter. I'm mixing up a bit of epoxy to hold the brass wire in place, and I'm gaffer taping some foaming as an insulator. Whilst hogging out an irregular shaped interior is very convenient, it does leave you with an irregular hole to fill.